Hello, and welcome to this video, Getting Started with Dashboard Author in the Vega platform. Dashboard Author should appear on the left-hand side of your screen here. If you don't have this tab, please contact your CSM for support. When you click on it, this will bring you in to Dashboard Author, which if it looks familiar, that's because it is based on AWS QuickSight. AWS has a lot of great documentation on QuickSight out there, many videos if you want to see those. The set of videos Vega is going to create, it's going to focus on common use cases we hear from our customers and the data sets that are specific to our platform. I suggest you minimize the tabs here on the left to give you a little more real estate. Let's start with our data sets. You should see these two data sets, spend detail and spend summary. Spend summary is most of the data you see within the platform and goes back at least 13 months if we've uploaded all of your data. Spend detail is the previous 90 days worth of resource level information. This is very, very large, so we only store 90 days of it. But you'll find that most of the reporting you want to do, it is sufficient to have the summary data set here. If you click on the three buttons and do create analysis, we'll get started. An analysis is the actual report writing function where we'll pick what kind of visualization we're going to use and what kind of data we're going to present and how it's going to be presented. You're always going to choose interactive sheet. That will display best within the platform and is meant for these web pages. Now that we've picked our data set, and you can only use one data set at a time, we're going to pick what type of visualization we want to do. There are many types here. One of the most common is a pivot report, very similar to an Excel pivot table. I'm going to go ahead and create a report that is cloud product spend by month. This video will be a very simple solution and will get more complex in future videos. We need to pick which columns we need to use in our report. And you may not know what some of these are. If you click on the Help button at the top and go to Documentation, click the Vega Platform Documentation, go to Data Reference and Data Dictionary, you will see all the columns listed with their definition. For my sample report here, as I said, I'm going to start with products. So my rows are going to be the cloud products. Scroll down, pick my product, drag it over here. My columns are going to be the months. These are called closing months. This is billing data. So I'm going to pick the closing month. And then the field I want calculated, I'm looking at spend. I can either do net cash or net fiscal. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and use net fiscal. And by default, QuickSight is choosing to sum that number for me. So now we have a pretty ugly report that is doing what I asked. My cloud products with the spend by each month. Let's do a little bit of cleanup. The buttons at the top, the first two we've already covered by default. We have our data set, which brings up this panel on the left. We have our visualization, which brings up our visualization and the data within it. The next one is a filter. My report right now includes all clouds inside of my demo company data. I'm going to add a filter. I'm going to pick cloud provider. I'm going to limit this to just one cloud. Click on the three buttons, edit. There are different filter types. We'll use more of these in future videos. I'm going to stick with the default, which I'm going to filter from a list. It will automatically populate this list from the cloud provider data. I'm going to deselect them all and just select AWS and hit apply. The next button at the top is parameters. That's a little more advanced. We'll cover that and insights in a future video. The next button is properties. When I created my table, you may have noticed that that automatically appeared on the right-hand side. We'll use this extensively here in a little bit as we continue our cleanup. So now that I have my filter, I'm going to go back to my visualization tab and let's do a little more cleanup. My product names, I'm okay with the way they're displaying. Closing month, it's displaying the first of every month. I don't particularly want that. If I click on the three buttons here, I'll have some options. I'm going to change the format to be just the month and the day. Sorry, the month and the year. That's a little better. And then my values are just showing up as numbers. I want it to look like a currency. So I'm going to click on these three dots. As I mentioned earlier, net fiscal defaulted to a sum. But if I wanted an average or a count of lines, a min, a max, etc., there's some neat features I could play with. For now, I'm going to leave it as sum. If I want it as a number, I'm going to pick currency. That automatically added my commas, added the dollar sign. For this report, I don't really care about the cents. So let's go back to format, select more formatting options. As you can see, we have quite a few things we can do in here. But what I'm going to do is select the drop down for decimal places, make it 0. Click the back arrow. And for our visualization widget here, looks like we're in pretty good shape. Now let's go over to the properties side. We'll go through each one of these individually. The first one is for the title. And as you can see, it automatically gave us a pretty ugly title here. I'm going to click this edit button. I'm going to call this product spend by month and save it. Of course, you could change the font, the sizing, bolding, etc. If you didn't want that title or any title there, you can click this I and hide it. Pivot options, of course, only appears when you have a pivot table like we do. As you noticed, they've added a header row for my closing months, but they also added a header row for my net fiscal amount. I don't particularly want to see that. So here, under single metric, I'm going to click that I, and that's going to disappear. Checking headers. Right now, my rows default to a label of rows. Not very helpful. I'm going to rename this product. As soon as I hit tab, you can see that it's changed over here. Should also mention at this time that QuickSight automatically saves for you, so you won't lose any work if anything happens. And of course, any of the headers have the normal ability to change font, bold, italics, etc. The cells let me change the height, the width, the font of my actual cells here. Normally, QuickSight does a pretty good job of sizing these for you, so I don't usually find I have to mess around with this too much. Now, of course, you don't have to set the cell width using the fields under the drop down. For example, my product here looks like we're cutting off some of the product names. You can just drag, just like in Excel, and change your cell size. Next, we're going to look at totals. And the way they do this is if you would like a total of the rows at the top or the bottom, you turn on rows. And if you want to add across the columns, turn on columns. I want to total my rows. I'm going to turn this on and position it at the bottom, which it already defaulted to. And I can see I now have my monthly totals here at the bottom. Subtotals will be something you use when we start getting into drill downs and have a drill down structure over here on the left. These row names, column names, and value names are used when your end user goes into the report and clicks on one of the headers. They can choose how it is sorted. And as you can see, these names are defaulting to the column names from the data sets. So if you want to put more user-friendly names in there, you can. So my row defaulted to product, which is fine. I'm just going to capitalize it. As soon as you hit tab, it'll change. My column name is closing month up here at the top. I'm going to change that. And then my value, my cell value defaults to this. I'm going to change this to net fiscal amount. And now you can see when we come over here and we look at the sort that we now have these friendlier names in there. Then the last thing in the properties box is conditional formatting. We'll talk about that in a future video. This will allow us to do things like change the color of cells depending on a value. For example, if anything is negative and you want to turn it red, you can do that. And then one other thing in the properties box is interactions. This allows us to create actions that can be done within the report. For example, if I wanted to jump to another screen that had more detail on backup, I could click on this, take it to a different report. So it allows some interactions between the reports. But again, we'll go into that in a more detailed video. Now, the one other thing I would do before closing out my report here is, as you can see, the name of your analysis defaulted to our data set name. You probably want to make this something easier to understand when you start getting a lot of analysis. It's a little hard if they all start with just the data set name. So I'm going to call this cloud product spend by month. Okay, and there is a simple pivot table report. In future videos, as I said, we'll discuss some of the other things you can do. We'll also discuss how to publish it and share it within your company. Thanks.